Talk to your family, friends, your neighbors, the people you know best who've gotten the vaccine.
It will save millions of lives and soon end the pandemic once and for all.
Because it will save lives.
It will save millions of lives.
And get us out of this pandemic.
And soon end the pandemic once and for all.
The only thing that's changing the trajectory is the vaccine. The vaccine actually is the answer.
We need everyone to get vaccinated.
And that's up to all of us to step forward and get vaccinated.
I will not relent until we beat this virus. But I need you. I need you. I need every American to do their part. I need you. I need you to get vaccinated when it's your turn and when you can find an opportunity. The scientists have made clear that things may get worse again. We need everyone to get vaccinated. We need everyone to keep washing their hands, stay socially distanced, and keep wearing the mask as recommended by the CDC. Beating this virus and getting back to normal depends on national unity. Because if we don't stay vigilant and the conditions change, then we may have to reinstate restrictions to get back on track. And please, we don't want to do that again.
So as we've been told for months now, vaccine is going to get life back to normal. But here we have, just from March 23rd from Bloomberg, it's not the first time this has been in the media, we must start planning for a permanent pandemic. With coronavirus mutations pitted against vaccinations in a global arms race, we may never go back to normal. So, planning for permanent pandemic, planning a pandemic. It's interesting the way they word that, But the global arms race, so here we are, same idea, and you can see the caption under the photo there, the arms race of our time. It echoes the wording used in a recent Norwegian op-ed by a lady who is so sold on the vaccines as the solution that's apparently not going to get us back to normal because they're saying this permanent pandemic. But she was so in love with these, so sold on the vaccine, she headlined in her article, "I would like to die from the AstraZeneca vaccine." She'd sacrifice, and she's willing to be the sacrifice for our safety so that we can get back to normal. And she wrote, it was all worded in the war against corona, and the vaccines are the only way out of the trenches. And yet right here, a couple days, might have even been right around the exact time that she wrote that article, they're telling us that we may never go back to normal. And this is the experts that we're supposed to trust. So, arms race, it's an arms race. I don't know what we're racing against. But I guess the vaccine is the weapon, and maybe it's racing against these new mutations. But for the past year, an assumption, sometimes explicit, often tacit, has informed almost all of our thinking about the pandemic. At some point, it'll be over, and then we'll go back to normal. This premise is almost certainly wrong. No going back to normal, guys. All this, 15 days to stop the spread. Just got to lock down just for a couple months, just for a couple weeks, then a couple months, then just a year, guys. And social distancing, it'll only be until 2021. Oh, now it'll only be until 2022. And wear your masks and do your part, like Joe Biden says. And everyone get the vaccine. And then together, we will beat this thing, and we'll get back to normal, guys. But that premise that they've been telling us for over a year now is certainly wrong, almost certainly wrong. This virus, it's elusive, and it may become our permanent enemy, like the flu, but worse. Because we're in a war, guys, a war against COVID-19, like Donald Trump said, and this is going to be our permanent enemy. Kind of like, I can think of another war that the government waged. War against terror. George Bush. Now, he said things like, if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists. If you don't take your vaccine, you might kill your grandma. Similar ways they word the stuff in permanent enemy. Like those bad terrorists over there haven't done anything to us, since 9/11. But, really, all the evidence indicates that, Probably wasn't 19 radical terrorists on those airplanes that did that. If it was, there's someone behind that. Someone whose name does not start with a B and end with a Laden. But, that's just a crazy conspiracy, and war on terror has now morphed into the war on corona. And it's going to be permanent enemy, just like the terrorists over there that don't do much harm. They became our permanent enemy. And, you had George Bush declared the first war, and you had old Donald Trump declare the second war. And you had Obama, continue the first war, and you got Joe Biden continue the second war. It's funny how, no matter who gets into power, the war on, well, in all honesty, the war on your freedoms always continues to march on, no matter what. Because, what they're saying is even if COVID-19 peters out eventually, our lives and our routines will by then have changed irreversibly. Going back? That won't be an option. The only way is forward. But to what exactly? Well, most epidemics disappear. They say once populations achieve herd immunity, and this herd protection comes about through the combination of natural immunity in people who've recovered from infection and from the vaccination of the remaining population. Except not the case with any of the previous SARS viruses, because they have not been able in the past to get a successful vaccine against coronaviruses. It hasn't been possible because of safety concerns. But they whipped it out in 9 months, and it's safe and effective this time, guys. All right, so just believe us, because we know what we're talking about. We from the government, and we here to help. So anyway, now that I thought about George Bush, I can't get that southern accent out of me. That George Bushy from Texas. War on terror. Anyway, in the case of the SARS-CoV-2, recent developments suggest that we may never achieve herd immunity. Oh man, that's even the U.S., which leads most other countries in vaccinations, already had large outbreaks, aren't going to get there. Oh no. That's the upshot of an analysis by University of Washington and people that we're supposed to trust. So the main reason is the ongoing emergence of, there you have it, the new variants. Behave almost like new viruses. But didn't see that coming. New variants, almost like new viruses. Gonna perpetuate a pandemic that's given the government more power than they've ever had in the history of the world, and they're gonna keep telling us that there's new variants that are like new viruses so they don't have to give up their newfound power? Oh, who would have saw that coming? Probably not any of us, but apparently there were people that saw it coming. Experts that warned about it, and now they're being featured in articles like this. So, it goes on about the strains, and, people that got immunity against the first strain don't have immunity against the second strain, and they get tested, and they test positive, and so on. You get the idea. Pandemic's here to stay forever. So it leaves only vaccination as a path towards lasting herd immunity, because apparently the vaccines, they're going to be able to do what our natural immune systems are not able to do. Maybe. Because admittedly, some of the shots available today are still somewhat effective against some of the new variants. Not all the shots, not fully effective, and not against all the new variants, but over time, they will become powerless against the coming mutations. So the vaccines are completely worthless, basically. This isn't my opinion, YouTube, and this is Bloomberg. So, of course the vaccine makers are feverishly working on making new jabs, but are they going to be able to keep up? It doesn't sound like it, because the pandemic's here to stay, right? In particular, inoculations based on the revolutionary, and I might add, experimental mRNA technology that's never before been used on humans, and it's never, ever been approved. It's still not. It's only emergency authorized for emergency use. It's updated faster than any vaccine in history, and, it doesn't give you immunity yet, although they might be able to reach that point. They say it only treats the symptoms. So technically, it's not even a vaccine. It's a therapeutic. But But the serum still needs to be made of these experimental injections. It must be shipped, it must be distributed, and it must be jabbed. You know, that process, it can't happen fast, not fast enough, nor will it ever cover the planet widely enough. So, you know, we may win a regional round or two against the virus, a battle here, a battle there, but by vaccinating like a particular population, like they did in Israel, where even the BBC admitted that they sold out. Israel sold traded its population to be guinea pigs. I'll get into that in another video, but yeah, the whole Israeli population is being admittedly being used as guinea pigs in the biggest trial of an unapproved vaccine, and that's how, you know, Israel was able to procure so many Pfizer injections. They made this deal. We'll give you the data of our citizens so you can do the safety testing that normally would be done in trials before a vaccine is approved. But since this one was so rushed and whatnot, they're trying to get this data for their actual FDA approval by testing it on Israel. So, yeah, so they, you know, apparently that worked, for instance. But sadly, on the other hand, evolution doesn't care where it doesn't work. So the virus just replicates wherever it finds, you know, unvaccinated bodies. And there it reproduces its RNA, and it copies itself, and it makes coding mistakes. And some of those chance errors turn into more mutations, and you have more variants, you know. And as they've already said, they're not going to be able to keep up with all the variants. So there you have it. It's here to stay, guys, with us forever. Isn't that wonderful? But, you know, Joe Biden wants us to know that by July 4th, we'll be able, if we stick together, and if we're united, and if we all get our vaccinations like good citizens, we'll celebrate our freedom from the pandemic. That's not what the experts have to say. And he even notes you won't be able to celebrate your freedom in the way that you think you might. You can only have small gatherings because, you know, this is the new normal. And like they just said, things are never going to go back to the way they were before. And the way forward, well, let's find out where we're going as the way forward. So, you know, more stuff on how this is mutating, and it's just more of the same about, I'm not going to get into it all, but more variants and more evolution and more copying, and we can't keep up with it, and it's here to stay. So here we go. You know, in one possible path that all these mutations take, the virus becomes more severe. Not more transmissible, though, so that's good news, but it'll cause more disease and death, but the growth is linear. In the other path, mutating virus becomes neither more nor less virulent, but more contagious. It will cause increase in disease and death that are exponential rather than linear. Okay, so there's some math you can look into if you're interested in this. But if this is the evolutionary trajectory of the thing we're dealing with, apparently we're in for some seemingly endless cycles of outbreaks and remissions. Yeah, accompanied by social restrictions, then some relaxations, then some lockdowns, then some reopenings. So, you know, basically, whenever the government wants to, you know, lock us down, all they have to do is say, oh, this variant's extra bad, we gotta lock you down. And we'll have no way of actually knowing if the variant's actually that bad or not, because they're going to have to lock us down ahead of time just to be safe before it actually spreads. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. And, you know, there's a bunch of studies that challenge whether lockdowns are effective or not, but can't mention it here because you're not allowed to mention anything on YouTube that goes against the official narrative. And the official narrative is that they're going to have to keep doing lockdowns because lockdowns work. So they must work. That's why after all the lockdowns, well, you know, we still got the pandemic, and not only that, it's here to stay. Lockdowns, they work great though. So, and more, you know, more vaccinations, but here's the good stuff though. This isn't defeatism. In the grand sweep of history, COVID-19 is still a relatively mild pandemic. It's mild, guys. It's not that big of a deal. That's why we locked down the whole world. That's why we're all wearing masks. For for months, actually for years, they're telling us now, because of a mild pandemic that's not all that bad. And social distancing and, losing hundreds of businesses going out of business permanently that are never opening up again. All for a mild pandemic. But it's here to stay. So they're going to do more of this stuff that caused all of this poverty and starvation in the developing world. And even the World Health Organization is begging us to not do lockdowns because of how many children it's killing. Hundreds of thousands of children because they can't get food because of lockdowns over a mild pandemic. And it's here to stay. Yay! But, we gotta be realistic. So, resilience demands that we include this new scenario into our planning. The new scenario, of course, being that the pandemic's here to stay. So, they are now planning for the pandemic to stay. They're not planning for the pandemic. Sorry, they're planning for the pandemic to just stay with us. Sorry, they're not planning a pandemic. They wouldn't do that. That's a conspiracy theory. The good news is that we get to keep getting better at responding. The more we lock down, for example, the less we damage the economy. So we'll have fewer kids starving to death. Less kids getting harmed. That's better than no kids getting harmed, right? And we might even, if we're lucky, if we work together, we might achieve scientific breakthroughs that will eventually make life better. Eventually, way down the road, life might eventually get better in a couple decades or so. I mean, it only took 2 decades for the War of Terror to not end, so, it'll probably be a couple decades at least, and then maybe a couple more after that, guys. But our brave new world needn't be dystopian. Except that if you look at Alex Huxley's Brave New World, they're literally talking about it as a Brave New World. If you actually read the book, well, the Brave New World is dystopian. So what the heck are they talking about? They call it a Brave New World, but it's not going to be dystopian? Maybe they need to look up the definition of dystopian. Or go read the book. I don't know. But, well, even if you believe them, it won't look anything like the old world. Oh, well, what will it look like? Well, it's going to look like vaccine passports to travel and new lockdowns whenever a new strain comes out. And this isn't anything new. Let's, I'm going to try to keep this real quick, but there's one more article we can look at from, I think, is it the Wall Street Journal here? They actually said this back in February, so they get into some more details they're really interesting. Yeah, Wall Street Journal here. Cold reality dawns. This was back in February 8th. COVID-19 is, likely here to stay. So, like I said, they've been saying this for some time now. And still Joe Biden says that if we just do our part and get the experimental vaccines, we'll all be good to go. We'll fight the pandemic and we'll win by July 4th. But the experts say, we're never actually going to win this war. This war is never going to be over, guys. Vaccination drives hold out the promise of curbing the virus, but governments and businesses are increasingly accepting what all the experts have long warned. They've been warning this for months, guys. The pathogen will circulate for years or even decades, or, as we're going to see, eternally. That's literally what they say. Leaving society to coexist with COVID-19 much as it does with other endemic diseases like flu, measles, HIV, and the war on terror, for example. The ease with which the coronavirus sped, the emergence of new strains, and poor access to vaccines in large parts of the world means could shift from a pandemic disease to an endemic one, but that implies that lasting modifications to personal and societal behavior. So, it could go and not be quite a bad pandemic anymore and just be with us, but only if we modify our personal and societal behavior forever. Great. Going through the 5 phases of grief, we need to come to the acceptance phase. The acceptance phase. It's a phase in this war on COVID, guys, that our lives are not going to be the same. Not now. Not tomorrow. Not on July 4th. Not in 2022. No, never. I don't think the world has really absorbed the fact that these are long-term changes. Oh, we've absorbed the fact, all right. We've absorbed the fact for months, which is why we've been making information on this. And then we've been called crazy conspiracy theorists, and now they're admitting it in broad daylight, right in your faces, saying what we've been saying from the beginning, that this is here to stay, that they're never going to give up their power, things are never going to go back to normal. Since when was the last time the government ever willingly gave up power that it took in an emergency, in a declared emergency, in a war on drugs, war on terror? No government war on anything ever ends. Do you really think this one's going to end? Of course not. So, well, just the way it goes. Even if there was no virus anymore, they would still not give up their power. They would just, use the flu and just say, well, now we need to do this to help stop the flu. So, endemic COVID-19, it doesn't necessarily mean continuing coronavirus restrictions. Not necessarily, but that's what the infectious disease experts said. But that's largely because vaccines are so effective at preventing severe disease and slashing hospitalizations and death. So they claim. Hospitals have already fallen 30% in Israel after it vaccinated a third of its population. Deaths there are expected to plummet in weeks ahead. So, that's good news, right? Well, but some organizations are planning for a long-term future in which preventative methods such as masking, such as wearing masks, and testing continue. A long-term future of masking. Maybe not lockdowns all the time, but masks, yes. Gonna have to keep wearing those masks, just like Joe Biden said. Meanwhile, a new and potentially lucrative pandemic industry is emerging quickly as businesses invest in goods and services, such as filters, diagnostic kits, quality air quality monitoring, and new treatments. So, basically, there's a bunch of companies out there that are making a huge amount of profit off of this pandemic, but while the lockdowns make a whole bunch of us more poorer, and then these companies, they get richer. But it's all for our health and safety. It's gonna keep us safe, right? It has to keep us safe. Why else would they be doing this? They wouldn't be trying to perpetuate a pandemic that's admittedly not really all that bad in the big scheme of things, just so they can keep up their profit. No, of course they wouldn't be doing that. They're just, well, you have to question why they're doing all this for pandemic. That's really not all that bad in the big scheme of things, but I'll let you guys figure out why they're doing all this over something that it's definitely way worse than the flu, but it's not all that bad. Here's the money quote right here. We assume it would last for years or be eternal, such as the flu, said Ji-won Lim, spokesman for South Korea's SD Biosensor, a test maker that is ramping up production of at-home diagnostic kits. So, the people that are selling the tests, the governments tell us are the number one way, well, until the vaccine arrived anyway, is the number one way to stop this thing. How getting tests helps stop it, who knows? But a company that's making a lot of money on these tests, they're the ones that are saying this is going to be with us forever. How would they know that? How would a company that's going to profit off of this be so certain it's going to be eternal, but other people, they're only certain it's going to be with us for a couple years or so? It's interesting. They've invested a lot of money in this, so they must be pretty sure it is really going to be around here for a lot of years. Probably decades, like the war on terror. Probably, or eternally. So, leading drug makers, they've invested in potential therapies. Not just vaccines, but other therapies. Or maybe the therapies they're talking about are the vaccines, because that's literally what the vaccines are. They're therapies, therapeutics, but who knows? More than 300 such products are currently in development, and they're making a buttload of money. Yeah, so not only does the government get to take away a lot of freedom from all the people all around the world, put a lot of people in poverty, get a lot of rich people richer, these companies get to profit forever. Just because it's going to be with us forever. And then this is the most, most important, but one of the last things I want to say before I end this video. Airlines. They're restructuring to focus on short-haul flights within Europe and away from Pacific countries that have said they'll keep borders closed for at least a year. Some airports are planning, here it is, new vaccine passport systems to allow inoculated passengers to travel. And you know what that means. That means they're not going to allow non-inoculated passengers to travel. They kind of leave that part out. Kind of self-evident, but I just figured I'd throw that in there because, you know, what that means is people who don't want to act as a guinea pig like Israel's citizens have, admittedly, by the mainstream media, been turned into a bunch of guinea pigs. Then we're not going to be allowed to travel. So we might not have permanent lockdowns. Lockdowns might come and go, every winter, every spring, here and there, whenever they're needed to stop the new strains. But you know what's going to stay around forever? Yeah, the new vaccine passport systems. And they're not even trying to say immune passport systems because they're not immunity passports. Because guess what? If you have natural immunity, it doesn't qualify you for these new passports. Only the vaccine. But it's about immunity. It's not about having to have a particular vaccine that makes particular companies a lot of money. Nah, it's about immunity, of course. Vaccine-induced immunity, because as they've explained, only the vaccine can give proper immunity to all the variants. Natural immune systems cannot do it effectively. No, they're no good for that. The vaccines, they can do it. It's just, you just have to have a new vaccine every couple of months. Update vaccine up to the updated variant. Sounds great. New vaccines perpetually, every year, every month, every 3 months. It might vary based on how many new variants there are. But the point being, it's always going to have new vaccines to keep you immune. And, that's just great for the companies making them, because that means they get to sell them instead of just this one time and then the pandemic's over, right? It's with us forever. So they get to sell the vaccine over and over and over. They get to make the money every time that there's a new variant. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So that's where we're at. And furthermore, here's a little bit more of the new normal. Restaurants, they're investing in more takeout and delivery because they don't want people, having normal social lives where you go out to eat together as a group. You got to take it, go home and stay isolated at home. Stay safe, of course. Of course, we all want to be safe. But, some people still might want to, have social gatherings, but now we don't need those. So, and meatpacking plants from Canada, all the way from Canada to Europe, they're buying up robotic arms to curb the risk of outbreaks by reducing the number of workers on assembly lines. And some people thought the lockdowns put too many people out of work. My God, oh man. So that's strange, because there's some rich people related to this thing called the World Economic Forum. Really rich people. And, they're talking about a new normal future where, how do they word it? There's going to be robots and technology is going to replace humans in the factories. And then here we go. Already, there's going to be robotic arms replacing workers on the assembly lines. So, the companies that make the robotic arms, they're going to make a lot of money. But the workers that lose their jobs and can't find new ones because there won't be any more assembly lines to work at, and we're not, in a society that's really designed to actually give, meaningful work apart from the low-wage work to workers like this. What are they going to do to feed their family? They're going to own nothing, and they're going to be happy because Because that's what the people that are planning this agenda, that's what they've actually literally said. They said, you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy. So they must have known, because they knew the pandemic was going to be around forever, because the experts, of course, have been saying it forever, and the media just hasn't reported on it till now. So it's just convenient how the pandemic seems to work for the benefit of the people who are driving the global technocratic agenda to put workers out of work and, transfer all the wealth from the poor and the middle class to them, to their pockets. They're going to be rich. We're going to own nothing. We're going to be happy. And we're going to have to give a vaccine passport if we want to get on a plane. So there you have it. I just had to make a quick video on that. Hope it hasn't gone too long, but it's a cold reality indeed, and a brave new world. But don't worry, not dystopia. Nah, not at all. We can all be happy, because if we work together and get that injection, get in line, stay united and wear your mask and practice social distancing, we'll beat this thing. Right? We'll beat it. By July 4th, we can declare freedom from the pandemic. Even though the experts are telling us it's here to stay forever. Thought I'd let you guys know the good news. Here from the brave new world, reporting, I am Jason. Till next time, peace.
We need everyone to get vaccinated. We need everyone to keep washing their hands, stay socially distanced, and keep wearing the mask as recommended by the CDC. Beating this virus and getting back to normal depends on national unity. Because if we don't stay vigilant and the conditions change, then we may have to reinstate restrictions to get back on track. And please, we don't want to do that again.
Today, we learned Pfizer is going to get nearly $2 billion. Moderna receiving $438 million in taxpayer money. And yet both companies have said they will not sell the vaccine at cost. They're going to make a profit on it.